Hello, good evening, and welcome to Thursday Night Live with Chef Brackman. Hello, anybody home? I hope you have all had a great week. Okay, people are joining. Let's give them a moment. Hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, the conversation tonight is for adults only. So, hello. The conversation tonight is for adults only, so we can send the children away. The topic for tonight is the husband's house, expectations, power, and abuse. So that's the topic for tonight. It's a very interesting and heavy topic. And, there's always been conversation about, hello from Colombia, nice to meet you. Conversations about marriages being under attack and, women my age are divorcing at an alarming rate. So this is an important topic. So first of all, before I start, I'll be telling a few personal stories from my life. So I would like to mention that if you recognize yourself, your mother or your father in this conversation, hi, please, this is not a call out. If I mean to call them out, I won't be sloppy about it. You'll be in no doubt. So if you recognize yourself, you recognize any of your relatives in the stories that I tell. The stories from tonight are for education, for information, just to, emphasize my point. It's not a call out. But if you decide to go and gist anybody, please make sure they watch the full video. And I'm so happy that I'm 40 next year. You cannot beat me, right? The truth, our truth is our truth. And we have the power to tell it whenever we decide that we should tell our stories. And this is me, seizing my voice, seizing my power, and telling important stories just to help other people. So that's what we're doing tonight. So the husband's house, the very idea of this word, the husband's house, the language in itself tends to create behavior in a marriage. It sets the tone, how the man treats you, how the relatives of the man treat you, how your own siblings, even the domestic staff in the house treat you, just because you are in your husband's house. So they tend to follow the cue of the said husband. And these are some of the unintended consequences, hidden abuse in the culture, in-law dynamics. And so we just need to know now, women all over the world, I'm telling you, if you meet a man and get married, you're not moving to your husband's house. You are moving to your new home. So if you meet like a man whose maybe sisters already live with or siblings live with, you need to set the groundwork before moving in with them. You need to understand how things are going to go from the point that you move into that house. So we should normalize saying our home instead. Women, when you get married, before you get married, there are a lot of distractions. They're spending money on you. They're taking you out. You're having sex and all these things. But the more important thing is not the wedding, because a lot of people are so focused on having a great wedding, Instagrammable wedding. It's what happens after. And the cracks come faster than some people really think. And I think it's my opinion that if you arrive at this house already pregnant, your choices are fewer. And that's why a lot of them ensure that you arrive pregnant. So I'm going to tell a few stories from the house that I grew up in. I was in Nigeria in April, and I was having a chat with my mom. And then she mentioned something that really struck a nerve and stayed with me. I couldn't shake it. She said, I don't know how we ever moved. But we lived in a compound downstairs. Then we moved to upstairs in the same compound. She said, I don't know whatever made us move from a more comfortable space into that miserable house upstairs. And I said to her, you made us move because you said the house was too porous. And she looked at me and I could see that either is a memory she had shielded herself from or something, but she wasn't really, thinking about it the way I remember it. So I'm going to tell you a story about the house downstairs, the porous house, and the house upstairs. So we lived in Enugu. We moved into this compound. It was a twin bungalow. It was a twin bungalow. So this part of the house had two rooms. We used one for the living room and one was my parents' room. Then there was a kitchen storage. Then there was a little corridor this way that had a toilet and a bathroom and a door that way. So this side of the house had 6 doors that go into it. And then the other side of the house that we called the other side was where the bedroom of me and my siblings, and then another bedroom that we used as guest room. And it had a room that the nanny stayed in. It was a big room that if another family rented that part of the house, it would have been the kitchen. And then there was a corridor and another toilet and bathroom and a door heading out. So there was a door into the guest room from the veranda. There was a door into our bedroom. So there were 6 doors into this house. And you know what that meant was, at the time we lived in this house that I was growing up, we moved into this house in 91 before my sister was born. And we lived in that house before my last brother was born in 97. So I think we moved in 96, right? In that house, we had so many people coming to live with us because my dad was a doctor in Enugu. So if someone gets sick in our village, they'll just enter car and arrive in Enugu. Even from different parts of the country, they will just show up in our house. And those who live in Enugu will remember that there was a lot of water scarcity. So all these people are there. We're all looking for water. So we're always fetching water from the local streams. So imagine you're hauling in 50-liter gallons of water, and all these people are flushing toilets, washing clothes, having a bath. We were just running this service, and if that was all, it would be enough. But they were just ungrateful. There was just a lot, and they were putting this woman through chronic stress in her home. And you couldn't even tell who was in the house at any time T, because they would connive with the nannies. They would give them money, give them stuff, and then you just give them a signal or knock on the window and they let you in from a door at another part of the house. And when my mother asks, you say, oh, you are on the other side. So there were 6 doors into this house. And there was a particular case, a relative of my mom who was living with us. And, I don't remember what she did, but my mom had punished her and she had staged a running away. And my mom was so worried, looking for this girl. Like, then it wasn't cell phone era. So you send message and they send message. They will ask the people here, have you seen, have you heard? They were looking for this girl. She never ran away. She planned with the house help that was in our house. That one used to let her in the night and used to reserve her food. So for the entire week, my mother looked for her. She would just hang out somewhere and then crawl back into the house to sleep. And this is your own relative. So when you have that tone, your husband's house, everybody treats it like a house that is not yours, anybody else's but yours. So your feelings, your ground rules, everything doesn't really matter. When they want to ask for money, they'll go and ask their brother, when they need something. So it's just, you are constantly undermined. And sometimes, like now there is cell phone era, you have to be evil to show up in anybody's house without informing them because you have the means. Back then, it was landline in the village. People didn't have this. So they would just show up and expect to be well fed. So my house, there was always stew. There was always soup in the freezer. Once they arrive, you run, boil rice, boil yam, make eba, host them well. Otherwise, it will be held against you. So some of the interesting things that happened in that house, there was a time we had 2 sick people in the house. One eats pepper and no salt. One eats salt but no pepper. So if you want to cook beans, when you cook it to that point that the beans is soft, you remove in a small pot, the one that will have salt but not pepper. Then you remove in another small pot, the one that will have pepper but no salt. This was like crazy work. And sometimes these people worked in a company that would give them hotel allowance because they were going for medical care out of town. And they'll just come and camp in your house. There was a day we came back from school. A woman was sick like that, brought her. My dad wasn't home. She was sitting on the couch in our living room, coughing up blood and spitting into a bottle. My mom went nuts. Like, my mom like, no, you cannot even wait for doctor to come back here. So my mom had grabbed her and taken her to a hospital, dropped her there and told my dad where she was, like, go and meet her there, because as long as she's coughing this blood, she can't be in the house with my children. The way they reported this wickedness back to the village, the way even us started to believe it, right? So it was crazy. Like now as an adult, like last week, I told you about the person who showered in my house and rubbed calamine lotion because they had chicken pox, and I was mad. I would be madder if someone was in my house coughing blood into a bottle because she came to your son's house or your nephew's house or something. You understand what I'm saying? So this is the tone that they don't bother to consult you. They don't bother to check in with you because you two are living in that mentality that is your husband's house. We need to stop this. It's your home. There has to be mutual respect. There has to be an agreement who can come for how long. Like before they show up in your house, you need to have their program. It's unacceptable. So this is one of the incidents. Then another one, it was a Saturday morning. Like, we've never forgot. I don't think a lot of people will forget it, right? It was a Saturday morning, and you know Saturdays are for weddings, Nigerian life, right? And my mom had woken up early because I think she had a lot to do that day. So she cooked stew. I still remember, if you're a 90s child, you remember that green stove on the floor. Most kitchens would have a gas cooker and then the kerosene stove. So that stew was cooked on that kerosene stove. So it was sitting on that stove on the floor. And my mom was coming out of her bedroom, because her bedroom door, if you come out into the corridor, you're looking into the kitchen door. So she's come out about to go to the shower. What does she see? One of the relatives, one of my dad's cousins who was living in the house, was sitting on a stool beside that stove with that pot of stew open, holding bread and eating that bread with stew from that pot. She didn't dish the stew in a pot and step away and eat it. No, she was eating from that pot of stew. Now, as an adult, as a chef, I think I would have been madder than my mother was. So my mother had dragged the bread from her hand and then thrown it into a bin, and she fought my mother. Not only did she fight my mother, she continued to live in our house. She was going to school she was going to uni from our house. So me now as an adult, and then they reported wickedness. So the case got to all my dad's aunties in the village. It was a case that my mother had to answer to. And as an adult, me as a chef, you ate from my pot of stew when you're not mad. But then we were kids. I think I was 8 or 9 at this point. We were kids. So the gaslighting, we could not even protect the woman because we were trying to protect ourselves. Like, you're trying to be on their side. You're trying to have them like you so that you're not as evil as your mother. And she continued to live in our house. Do you know, in this house that I live in, this home that I share with my husband, if any relative of his touches me, if they're not out of my house immediately, then it means I cannot be in that house. But she fought my mother and she kept living in our house because it's her brother's house. You know, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand the impact of what language can do? And then we had, and then a few months later, I don't know, a while later, the same woman, she came around to the house for something after she had moved out. And our dog, the dog that she lived with for a while, now chased her and took a bite of her leg. I don't know who reported it or how it was reported, but by the time my mother got to the village, they said she told the dog to bite the woman. And till now, I didn't know my mother speaks dog, but yeah. Then people can interfere with your life. An auntie, like you're newly married, you come. An auntie will be advising you that when you buy something, you should not say the real price so they don't say you're spending your husband's money too much. But these people are also crafty. So what happens if you follow this advice? I've never had a sneaky bone in my body, and my mother does not. So she keeps things simple, right? If you go and buy Hollandaise and you half the price or tell them 3/4 of the price, you think they don't know where market is. They will come back and give you the amount of money you quoted and tell you to buy it for them. Then what will you do? You put your money so that you can maintain your life in your own home. Like, first of all, you grew up in your father's house, your parents' house. You had a set of rules. And, sometimes I don't understand how women who married from the university or from youth service, women who have never had a year or two of independence where they lived in their house, when they cooked food because it was what they wanted to eat, when they slept and woke up late in the weekend. I don't know how they did, because I will always be grateful for the years that I lived in Canada. After university, I did youth service. I worked for 2 years in Nigeria. I moved to Canada for my master's, and then I worked in Canada for a few years. So I had that, paying my own rent, paying my own utility, having my own car, doing stuff. And then Saturday, I can go to the shop on Friday nights. So I've done my grocery and can decide I'll sleep till 11 on Saturday mornings. And there are women that have never had this option in their life because they moved into their husband's house instead of their new home. So when will you become an adult? So in your parents' home, at some point, you are responsible for your siblings, you are responsible for everybody else, you did a lot. And then you're finally an adult. But instead of moving to your new home and living the life that you've always dreamt of, you're now living in your husband's house and by the set of rules that you have to abide. Is it fair? So, and they start to pick on every little thing, like, you went to the market, you bought peeled egusi instead of the unpeeled one, because then the peeled egusi used to be cheaper than the unpeeled one. So back then, like some of the grandmothers that used to pull this kind of fuss, their life was spent on food processing because they were in the village. People were not typically buying ready-made food in the village. It was the way of life. But if you're in town and the woman is now working, you can't hold her by the standard of how it was done in the village. You peel cassava, you soak it, you carry okwa, you wait for it to rot so that you can step on it and do it. You soak corn and do pap. You make soybean milk. And my mother did try a lot of these things in the beginning, the early days, before they overwhelmed her, and it got to a point that she ran out of fucks to give. A lot of, some of the things, like when I was born a year after their marriage, and then my brother was born 2 years after that, and the next year, my mom took a British Council scholarship and went to the UK for 1 year to do her master's. They still talk about it today. Oh, someone is asking what the topic is for today. They came late. Come early next time. The topic is the husband's house. Expectation, power, and abuse. So we're discussing how language can model behavior in a marriage. Okay? Yeah, sorry. Someone was just asking me what the topic was. So if you buy nice things for yourself, problem. The resource is spreading too thin because there are so many dependents. There are so many things going on. You have people just come with all kinds of rules. We had a time, there was a lady, she said something about not having blood. She had to drink Maltina with evaporated milk and raw egg. And she didn't come with money. She would just be giving you rules and regulation. You'll be running around. And so with a lot of these things happening, my mother now insisted that we should move upstairs when the family there moved out. So there was a family upstairs that they were family friends of ours, and they moved to America. We now moved upstairs. Let me tell you, that upstairs house, first of all, is upstairs. And you remember I told you we used to fetch water. Now, we now had to fetched water upstairs. So imagine me at 9, 10, 11, carrying 50-liter jerry cans of water upstairs. because that house had one door. So you can tell at every point who is in the house and who is not. It had 3 bedrooms. So, and it had one toilet and one bathroom and a kitchen, and then the living room. So we moved from a house that had 2 toilets, 2 bathrooms, and extra space, and moved there because my mother was overwhelmed and she said the house was too porous. But do you think that the people that this change was made for are sensitive or have shame? No, they kept coming. So there was a story. I'll tell you this one. This one has me still. There was a man in our house. He was a relative of my father. He had surgery. I think it was appendectomy. So he was always lying in the guest room. We had moved upstairs at this point, so I must have been 10. And we used to bring his food to that room. He was always lying on that bed. And I would bring his food, and then he would sit up in his bed, accept his food, and then he would squeeze my breast. And then he would say something like, I should be a big girl, fine girl like you, will be doing like small girl. And and I should not tell anyone, and if I don't behave, he will just prefer our nanny. And at that point, and then also, so half the time, the nanny was the one who took the food, and she would be in that room for longer than normal to deliver the food. Now, my adult brain thinks that he may have molested her as well. And I didn't tell, because my mother does not do anything in half, which means that she would have dragged him with that his surgery suture out of our house. Maybe before my father hears, maybe he would have been with police. But with what she was dealing with, and the way cases were always stacked against her, my childhood brain just felt that they would leave what he did and focus on that he had surgery and he got injured or went to prison. So, you see, at the time, I thought I was protecting my mother, but she also let things slide because she thought she was protecting us. She was staying so that we, but I didn't realize how much of a toll a lot of the things that were happening had on her until she had anxiety and stopped driving, And now that I think about it, from the interactions we had then, as a child, I think that she might have at some point had a serious fear, even for her own life. Because there was a day she said to me, she called me and said that in Igbo, she said, Ifemem. Ifemem means if something happens to me. She told me about how I needed to look after my siblings, but also she showed me all her like most precious jewelry and said, Ifemem, I needed to take them all and make sure that I keep them and keep them safe so that it doesn't fall into any other hands. That was so. Now that I think about it as an adult, it wasn't ordinary. The woman went through a lot. And adults will be in the house. And it wasn't even before the incident of this man with the surgery, there was also another lady in the house. I remember when I just started having breasts, she also used to squeeze it. And it was so painful. I don't know. Women would remember. New breast is painful. And I never really understand what was going on. And this is the reality of a lot of women, even in this generation that we're talking. People are saying, feminism, is it not too much? Is it not? It is not enough yet. Women's rights is not where it should be yet. There's a lot of financial abuse going on. Even something as simple, some people don't see this as abuse, but you date a guy. For those who had premarital sex, you date a guy and you guys always use condoms when you had premarital sex. And then you come into his home. He tells you, I'm a married man and I will not use condom in my house. Which means that he also doesn't want you to use contraceptives. And a lot of, I was at a book club with a lot of women, and we were talking about a lot. And because we read Chimamanda's Dream Count, we were talking about some of these cultural things and trying to see if it's across board the same. And the women from Bangladesh, Palestine, and Pakistan. So they were like, yeah, the stories, mother-in-laws married young, never had a say anywhere, and all of a sudden their son marries and they see a new prey and they just carry it forward. So they finally see where they can go and have some power. This kind of thing. So it's not a Nigerian problem. It's not an African problem. It's a worldwide problem of an imbalance of power between men and women. And a lot has changed it now, because back in the days, women didn't work outside the home. But now a lot of women work full time outside the home. They pay bills in the home, and they still don't have a say in the home. So they keep undermining your contributions, because you're in their son's house, you're in your husband's. If you learn anything today, change this language. You are in your home. You have a right to decide what guests come into your home. You have a right to decide how you guys spend your wealth, your money, your common law money. And sometimes I talk to a group of Nigerian women and they want to gaslight me. They say, you're talking like this because you married Oyibo. No, there are Nigerian men that you don't disrespect their women for any reason. Please confirm that there are Nigerian men that you don't disrespect their wives. So it's about awareness. It's about exposure. It's about where someone is on their spectrum. So there's some, like, if you meet an only son, especially an only son whose mother is widowed, and maybe she has been a widow for a while, and she has started treating that son like her husband. They're very clingy, and they can really, really frustrate you. They can really frustrate you. So I've told a few stories, and there are even a lot more. There are a lot more. I've seen a woman, her stepdaughter, like the husband was married before and became widowed and then married her. The stepdaughter, an adult woman, had a bunch of children with a few men, and then came and dumped all those children on her because she's dumping them in her father's house. So there is a new wife in a house, and she's now forced to raise these children that are not hers because she's in her husband's house and she has to comply or get out. Do you understand how this language? I need you to stop. Some of you use it because you think you're peppering your unmarried friends, your single Pringle friends. Yeah, let me go back to my husband's house. You people don't understand what you're perpetuating. And we need to change the language. You're going to your home, please. So some are raising the children of their stepdaughter. Some are raising the child of the husband's sister. So she has to go to university now. She has made this mistake. Don't be so selfish. Before your first child is even born, they dump that one on you to be raising. Because it's their son's house. They've made this decision. You are not included. The day they come with that child to dump that child is the day you're being informed. But your husband has already given them his yes. This needs to stop. It needs to stop. It just has to. There's a lady I know. And some people think this happens only when the man has the money. You think so? It's not true. You can live in Canada. There are a lot of girls now who went to Canada for school, worked, got a job, and then got mortgage and bought their home. And then they introduce you to someone, start talking to a guy in Nigeria. So by the time you come back to Nigeria, do court marriage and file and bring him, you're already in your home that you paid for. And then he moves in The moment he moves in, he converts it to your husband's house. Am I lying? Someone should confirm that they know what I'm saying. They arrive with the man of the house energy in a home that you collected mortgage and paid for, and start giving you rules and regulations. Before you know it, they tell you that their sister is coming to study and she'll stay here. Some people think that it's jobless women that these things happen to. It happens to women in every sphere of life. CEOs, judges, magistrates, all of them. It happens to them. So we need to change the language. We need to think about this thing very well. Yes? The woman, so I know a lady. She was paying the rent. She made significantly more money than her husband. But she wasn't disrespectful to this man. But his sisters were living in the house with them, and they were not being helpful to her. So she brought her mother to help because she had to work. I don't remember what the conflict was all about, because when I heard the story, my brain disconnected from what so there was a conflict in the kitchen, and one of the sisters of the husband raised her phalanges, swung it in the air, and slapped her mother. So for the first time in that marriage was when she was realizing that her house is no longer safe. Because if these riffraffs, if these chronic freeloaders can slap your mother in your house, that's how that marriage ended. She left. And women who work, women who have money, because that's why a lot of these men insist on marrying from youth service, insist on marrying from final year. They want you in that stage where you've not touched money. And they want you as pregnant as quickly as possible. Because in Igbo, they say, a chicken with chicks doesn't fly high. So what that does is that child ties you down, because you don't, like women who have money and who don't have any children yet, they live faster, they live easier. But the moment that one child is born, at a point when that child starts getting to 6 months, 7 months, they come and rubber stamp and apologize to you very profusely and knock you up again. By the time you have 2 or 3, you're not going anywhere. You will stay. Maybe by the time they're going to high school and you have money and some independence, you might opt and leave them. But you see that back to back 2 to 3, you're going nowhere fast. And they know it. And that's why they do it. So marriages, people keep saying marriage is under attack, as if some mommy water is in the water with something. No. It's the society, and a lot has changed. Culture is changing, but we're holding on to stuff that we shouldn't be holding on to. Women are paying school fees now, they're paying rent now. Someone is there saying, I don't touch children that are younger than 6 months old. A husband, a father. So in my case, that I'm born in 2 and 3, and we're abroad and we don't have help. If you're not touching children who are younger than 6 months old, will I kill myself? So I just giving some of these stories so that we can start to think about these things. When they gang up on you and tell you to stop working and look after the children, when they tell you to stop your business, and then they start withholding money from you. Withholding money from you. There was this situation where the man said, since you want to make money, then he stopped contributing to any household things. And the woman was struggling with her business. So she had joined this group. I don't remember what they call it in English, but let me explain to you what they do. Sometimes there are 20 women, sometimes there are 100. But they have a fixed amount of money that they contribute monthly. And then one person will take it. Some groups, 2 people will take it. Some groups, 4 people will take it. So sometimes that contribution, when it's your turn, maybe it's like 1 million. You now use it to do something in bulk or something like that. So I think she had taken, my sister says it's Osusu. So she had been contributing to that thing. And then she takes that money. And the mistake she made is not really a mistake, because in a marriage that works, you should be able to discuss this kind of things, your financials, your planning and all. So she had told the man that she had collected 1 million or 1.5 million. And then he now said his own business in itself, blah, 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 that he wants it. Then he borrowed it with no plans to pay it back because it's the audacity. He wanted to keep her there, keep her where she was. So he borrowed that money and he never returned it. And of course, this woman had to keep paying into that pot again. Meanwhile, the money she had been paying for a while and she finally took, she couldn't use it. So these are some of the things that, it also happened to lazy women. Like, and the kind of things they'll bully you for. Like my mother, like, I don't know when it started, but I remember that most afternoons she would take a nap and whatever relatives that are in the house at the time will gossip about it. Lazy, weak, always tired, blah, 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 blah. But as an adult, I have thought about what was happening at that stage in life. My mom would just enter her room, put on the AC, lie down, rest. Now, let me tell you what maybe they were not paying attention to, or they were too mean-spirited to connect. My mother was an English teacher in a secondary school. So every morning she left with us, like, because we're in university primary school, she was teaching in university secondary school, which shared a wall. So she would drop us and then go off to work. And then we finished earlier than secondary school. So we'll go to staff room and wait for her and then come back home with her. Sometimes we walked home. And my mom started doing evening law. So she was going to campus, I think lectures from sometimes 4, 5. She would come home like 9 or 10. But my mom had evening lectures. She was adult education and evening law. My mom did evening law. So she will come back and rest because she has to go to lecture. She has to study in the night. My mom also used to mark WAEC. So when WAEC and the university entrance exam, so she used to mark literature. So she will have these piles of, so sometimes she's in her room. First of all, you need to cancel all the sheets where nobody wrote in. So if you open the booklet, everywhere that a student didn't write an answer, you need to cross them out before you now start reading what they actually answered and then start marking. So sometimes you're in your house, everything you say will be taken against you. You speak English, they'll say, is it because you went to UK? You do it like you could do no right. So she would just enter that room, whether she's sleeping, whether she's marking WAEC, whatever she was doing there. But this woman had to go to lectures the whole evening. And then we even used to keep hot water for her in a flask. She used to wake up like 3 or 4 to study when she had exams. We'll keep water, we'll keep the lamp and everything. She'll come out and sit on the dining table and study. And there wasn't a time she did business. She used to go to Cotonou and then sell bed sheets and those kind of things. So that woman hustled. And then she used to write books and those kind of things. So, but then the single story they wanted to tell, because it was more lucrative to their evil agenda, is that she's sleeping every afternoon because she's lazy. And now she has adult children and they can't try it right now. And even a few years back, she moved, my family moved to Bonny, and then she moved to Abuja for work. So that way she had space from people she didn't want to see in her home, and kind of manages in a way that if she's coming to Bonny, that people she does not want to see are not in the house, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I have said a lot of stories and I'm just trying to see. I have some notes. I'm trying to be sure I don't miss anything. I don't want to keep us too long. But now that I've said some of these things, I must talk about another important point. The red flags that you women are missing, for which reason you're even arriving in these houses in the first place. Sometimes when they show you who their relatives are, pay attention. When the men talk, pay attention, because this is what you will be living with. Let me give you an example. There was a guy, I think he met me before I went to university, but he lived in Lagos. He had come to Bonny for work. So he met me, he liked me, long story, I was not ready, whatever. But by the time I was in the university, he started coming after me again, wanted to marry me, blah, 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 and convinced me to visit in Lagos from uni. I was in Igbinedion, so it was a short trip to Lagos. And he took me to his parents' house to meet his parents one Sunday afternoon like that. You know, this kind of public holiday that falls on a Friday and on a Monday. So I left school on a Friday and returned on a Monday morning. So we were in their home before the parents came back. I think they had gone for a meeting. You know, all these meeting Igbo people do, community meetings. So the woman, I think he had informed them that he would bring me. So the woman already wanted to show her dominance. She walked into I got up, greeted her. She just removed her shoes. There's a way she kicked them off, then yelled his name and told him to pick them up and take them upstairs to her room. And then she came back with this food, like in a foil, puff puff, chin chin, some pieces of chicken. Like you can see, they were at a meeting or something, and they shared. So, and then shouted on him again to go and bring tree and collect these things from her hand. And I was just looking. I don't know if that's the way she always treated him, but I knew that I would never tolerate this. So I'm just there watching them. Then she asked me who my father is. Then what's your surname? I said Izuara. I said, is it Izuara from Ogidi? I said, no, not that one. And then she sounded kind of disappointed because at the time, the Dr. Izuara in Ogidi was very popular, much older than my father. And they asked where my father worked, asked a bunch of annoying questions. And I was like, never. So, and then there was another guy after that, someone introduced me to him. And most of this relationship was a phone call. He lived in America. And then one day he called and we're talking. And then he said that, the last picture I posted, he noticed that I was wearing multiple earrings. How many piercings do I have? I said 3. He said, why? That he does not think his mother will approve of it. That I should consider letting 2 close. I said, I was like, your mother? An adult, me, in youth service, you're telling me your mother will not approve of my ear piercings and you want me to take you seriously. And then I've been kind of hearing whispers about what children from divorce home go through, some level of discrimination. It's a bit better now because divorce is more widespread. But back then, they were almost, the mother is a divorcee. They never say the father is a divorcee. Man will divorce and remarry. But woman is the one that will be carrying stigma, divorcee. When they finish showing her pepper and she divorces, then they will label her divorcee and also isolate her children. And that's why a lot of women don't leave. But I'd never felt it because even though my mom now left the house and was working in Abuja, I was still in that bubble of my parents are married. My parents' home is not broken. Until this guy I was talking to said, wait, you said your father works in Bonny, your mother lives in Abuja. I said, yes. Said that he does not like that because if I wake up, that if I bring you to America and you wake up and decide to go and work in another state, your mother cannot stop you. So you can already see it's the type that will be reporting you to your mother and expect your mother to be an ally in bullying you. You know? So I was like, what am I hearing? Or you go out with someone you want to marry and they're talking with other people and mocking a woman who has had CS. And you're sitting there comfortable. You don't tell them off. You're laughing along. You that you don't even know if your follicles will produce a mature egg. You're joining them because you want to be picked. You want to be loved. You're joining them to laugh at a woman who has gone through 9 months of pregnancy when you don't know what your follicles will do. That woman is lazy because she did bed rest. You want to join them. The man is sharing his views on domestic violence. You think it's a joke. You think it's something that happens to other people. Someone is telling him they slapped their wife. You're telling him, he's telling them, you did well. She talks too much. You're there smiling. You're not seeing red flags. You're not confronting him there or later to ask, you said what? These are the issues. Pick me gang. There are things you should, in fact, my brand of feminism is to make sure that other women are respected everywhere, in their home especially. I have an uncle in Port Harcourt. When I want to, like when I was in Bonny, like when I was in Nigeria, when I was in Bonny, if I'm going to Port Harcourt for something, groceries in Bonny was rubbish then. Those that followed me will see it on my stories. So I used to go to Port Harcourt once in a while to buy groceries. If I wanted to sleep over in their house, I would call my uncle and gist him. But you know what I do next? I call the wife. Because some of them, you've told them, they've said okay, but somehow they forget or they just don't mention it to their wives because it's their house. I don't like it. I don't want to walk in and she's looking all surprised and you're realizing she has not been told. I do not leave it to chance. I always call her or message her and say, can I crash on? And sometimes she'll be like, your uncle has already mentioned it to me. But I double check. There was also a time it was Christmas holiday. My parents had fixed their 25th wedding anniversary in the village and they traveled ahead of me. I was working in Bonny then and my boss didn't let us catch the boat I wanted to catch. I wanted to leave Bonny at 12 so that I can go to Ihiala from Port Harcourt. He said, absolutely not. Everybody must walk till lunchtime. So I was now on 2:30 boat. So while I was sitting in this boat, the man beside me, a family friend, asked me, so where are you going? I said, when I get to Port Harcourt, I'll go to D-Line. I'll take a car to Owerri and take another one to Ihiala. He said at this time, he will not allow it. I thought it was a joke. He called my father and said, and just explained to my dad that no, Ada cannot travel. This security and blah, blah, blah. This was like 2009 or 2010. And my dad said, okay. And he said, she'll follow me home, stay in my house, and the next month. So as he was doing all this, I said, if you don't call your wife and get her permission, I'm not following you anywhere. I'll just go straight to the park. I was not having it. Then he called his wife, put it on speaker, and I explained the situation. I said, okay, this girl is such and such, doctor's daughter, blah, blah, can she come with me? And he said, oh, honey, no problem. I said, okay, now I'll follow you, crash in your house and go on to Ihiala tomorrow. I don't do it. And you should not disrespect other people. Just show up and be acting like princess. No, don't do it. So your brand of feminism must start with making sure that other women in the workplace, in their home, everywhere are respected and treated with dignity. And yeah, so that's some of the things that I wanted to say. Try not to arrive pregnant, especially if they're taking you abroad, and a lot of them make sure you come pregnant because it's a control, is a control tool. You come and they break you in a way that they want. If you're already skilled, like you have a nice job, you work for KPMG, Deloitte, all these companies that are very good on your resume, and you're almost always guaranteed to get a job in the next place. Yeah, you're coming from Nigeria to America or Canada. Try not to arrive pregnant. Enter the job. Most jobs, if you've worked 52 weeks, you're eligible for maternity leave and co. So it's better that if you work like 3-4 months and get pregnant, by the time you're born, that 52 weeks would have reached, right? Just try. It will buy you a lot of options, because the way you have nannies and co in Nigeria, you don't have it in America and Canada, which means if you arrive pregnant and give birth, you might born 2 or 3 and your career it will take much longer to restart that career. And then you might start facing some serious financial abuse. So just something to pay attention to. So now that I have talked about some of these things, I'm going to ask us to extend some grace to our mothers. Earlier on, I don't know if it's this year or last year, Chimamanda had made, she was in an interview and she was also imploring people to extend grace to their mothers, that a lot of the things that they did back then was based on the information they had, what they knew. the way they were groomed and raised. So my mother and I, people who know me well will tell you that it's a very turbulent relationship. And lately, it's getting better. I'm growing. I'm letting go of a lot of the anger that I had earlier. And I'm also trying to see things in a different light. So extend grace to your mothers. They did go through a lot. And you cannot even sometimes scratch the surface of what they've been through. If the people who have abused you, whether it's your mother, your father, some of these relatives, and co, if they're already dead and you're still holding on to grief and anger and co, forgive them. It will save you. It will save you. It will do a lot for you. Like sometimes I pick a topic. It scares me what I'm going to say. It makes me reflect a lot. There's a lot going on, but I also know that it's inspired. It is revealed to me to put it out there to help somebody else think of something differently. So forgive those who have passed on. As a couple, is when you wake up, you call your morning. It is when you wake up, you call your morning. So if today is your morning, forgive each other. Talk about it. If you're dealing, like, I'll tell you a strategy that used to work for me when I was younger and I was having a lot of issues with my mom, sometimes with my dad, parents. You know, parents, when you go and talk, you talk one, they talk 10. I go and write letter. I bring paper. I write everything I want to say in a way that it will be uninterrupted and go and keep it where I'm sure they will find it. When they finish reading it, they'll call me for meeting. That way, they will not shut you up. You say everything you wanted to say. So, whoever you need to make peace with, especially those that don't listen, consider writing them today. Write everything. They might not tell you sorry. They might be unrepentant. Don't think that you've said everything, therefore. No. They might not tell you sorry, but you should prepare for that you've removed it, you've unburdened yourself, then forgive. It will save you yourself. And change the language. It is your home. It's not your husband's house. It is your home. Change the language. Because, like, this, like, for me and my mother, I think we have time to work on some things, to talk about some of the things that have been left unsaid. Some people will not have this time. It's already too late. So if you have this time, because a lot of people, especially my age, what you're dealing with is trauma that has never been spoken from way back. My mom and her mom also had a very turbulent relationship. It was horrible. My grandmother had also left at some point in the marriage, and she only came back when my mom was getting married. So she left. My mom became responsible for looking after all her siblings, and she had always had big dreams, having been properly educated. So at the point she wanted to go to boarding school, her father gave an ultimatum that if you leave the house and you're not here to look after your siblings, I will remarry. And my mother opted to go to boarding school, and he did remarry. So in my own story, at some point, even the house was overwhelming for me, and I was a child. So I now said I must go to boarding school. And I didn't want to go to Federal Enugu. I didn't want a situation where house help will run away or my mother will pursue house help. They'll come and deboard me. I'll come back home and be helping. So I chose Federal Owerri and Federal Okigwe, first and second choice, and insisted on going to Owerri. And boarding school was hell on earth. It was really difficult, but I switched one hell for another, if you will. So sometimes you're in that house. Sometimes it's your ego you're going through a lot in that your husband's house, but you want to be there so that at least you're not single, at least you're not divorced. But what you don't understand is that it's not just you. The trauma will not end with you. It will be the lived experience of your children. And you don't know the physical abuse, the emotional abuse. You don't know the full extent. And even sometimes you get angry and become both physically and verbally abusive to your children. So change the language. Walk through these things. When you wake up, you call your morning. And I'm calling on couples today to wake up today. Men, it's not your house. Women that have money, that think because of money you can bully your husband, it is not your house. It's a joint home. It should be built on cooperation, collaboration, mutual respect. You know, I'm not the kind of feminist that is anti-men. No. If men mess up, I will say it. If women mess up, I will say it. But all this talk about marriages being under attack and all of that, are we doing our best? When the Bible, for the religious ones, Genesis 2:24 says that a man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Anybody that is disrespecting your wife is disrespecting you. That should be your attitude. That should be it, period. That should be it. So I'm going to let us go because I think I've spent more time than I planned. I want to thank everybody for joining, and I hope that you've learned something. I hope that even if it's not now, for later, whenever you get married, if you're not yet married, let's start to think about the language, think about the things you're tolerating. And yeah, one more story. A young friend in her 20s told me that when she remembers what her mother went through in marriage, that she doesn't think she can do it, that the in-laws were horrible, and that woman did everything in her power just to please them. And it was never enough. So I'm asking you, if you're on the floor like a doormat, raise yourself. You're a queen. Fix that crown. It's your home. It's not your husband's house. It's your home. And I hope that you have a good weekend, and thank you for joining me. Good night.